Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a staple of NASCAR Cup Series racing, the one and only Rockingham Speedway. There are 4 races left in the season, split between 2 weeks, with only one driver being able to take home the championship crown in the longest Pretty Good Racing League season ever to date. But before we jump into the action this week, let's talk about the duel in the desert. Last week in Phoenix, Scott Eckrich dominated race number 1 to take his 17th win on the season, but a tough race number 2 left the top spot wide open for Brian Yazek to take his 3rd checkered flag of the season. Championship point leader Michael Krobach had a solid 2 races to retain his point lead over the rest of the field. But now we turn our attention to the Wreckingham Twin 60s presented by Yaz's Sandwiches and more. I'm Austin Belke, joined by J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe in the booth. As always, we've got our director Ryan Seneker in the production trailer behind the scenes. But J.R., what makes The Rock so much fun?
Well, Austin, Rockingham is a D-shaped oval measuring in at just over 1 mile in length. The turns here, they're banked at 22 and 25 degrees, and the driver here tonight will be needing every bit of that banking to help the truck turn. This place is super abrasive on the tires and will wear them out quickly. And this place feels extremely narrow from inside the truck that they will be driving here tonight, but you can move around on both ends of this racetrack. But I do want to point out one area that I will be watching tonight. The drivers will have to tiptoe through there as the tires wear. That'll be the exit of turn 2. The corner closes up there, and if you are the inside driver, it will be very easy for you to push up into your competitor. And that's why I think the majority of the passes we will see here tonight will be set up in turns 3 and 4. You can move around there and get a good run on the driver ahead on corner exit. And Austin, this is The Rock. Like you said, this is a place where the driver can make a big difference. I can't wait to see which drivers will step up here tonight and make that difference.
Thanks, JR. Yeah, my mind goes back to so many fun battles around this racetrack on the iRacing service, several of them with you. This place is just an awesome racetrack to, A, be a fan at, and B, be a driver on. Speaking of being a driver on, though, Kenny, you've got some keys to victory for our drivers tonight.
Yeah, I do have some keys for you tonight. First off, at Rockingham Motor Speedway, this place is fast. Despite it being only 1 mile in length, this place feels a lot faster than it may appear. And loose is fast at all racetracks. However, the right rear especially could very well wear out too quickly if you really decide to push the limit with the throttle here today. So this is an abrasive racetrack, so taking care of all of the tires, but I think especially the rear tires is going to be important today. Secondly, track position. I know it's a small field, but passing can be difficult here at the Rock. So if you can get up front and stay up front, which starts with this qualifying effort that the drivers are doing right now, if you can get up front and stay there and have pit strategy that allows you to stay up front, that'll get you the clean air and allow you to kind of run against the racetrack on your own and exploring different lines, which leads me into the third point. This track, you can run up high, you can run down low, you can run the middle, you can kind of run a combination of all three, but you have to kind of pick when and where to choose those different lines, and that'll affect the tire wear, and obviously what lines you pick also is kind of determined by the traffic you're in as well. So all of these 3 points kind of culminate together into what it takes to be successful here at the Rock.
Thanks, Kenny. I'd also like to give a big thank you and a huge shout out to the sponsor of tonight's broadcast, Yaz's Sandwiches and More. Located in Indian River, Michigan, Yaz's Sandwiches and More has been serving delicious summer lunches to northern Michigan residents and visitors for the past 5+ years. You can find them online at facebook.com/Yaz's Indian River. Heard a lot of stuff about the Yaz's Sandwiches and More. If you're up in that part of the state, in that part of the country even, go ahead and check out Indian River's Yaz's Sandwiches and More. It's on my bucket list of places to go. Speaking of places to go, Michael Krobach's going to have 4 places to gain before he can get to the top of the field if he wants to win back-to-back races here at Rockingham. I think he won the last race here. Anyway, at any rate, We have a qualifying order for you folks at home. Brian Yazik takes the pole. Only 3 drivers able to put down a qualifying lap, and that's just a true testament to how tricky this racetrack is, especially on new tires when the trucks are very, very loose. Usually they'll tighten up as the run goes on. Brendan Marr qualifies in the 2nd position, still relatively newcomer to the Pretty Good Racing League. Last driver to take a time in qualifying is Mark Cohen, the Watchman. He'll roll off in the 3rd position with Michael Krobach, your championship points leader, in the 4th position. Rounding out the top 5 starting spots is Mr. Consistency Mike Rasmus, the man trying to chase down Michael Krobach for the championship points lead. Matt Press starts to his outside in the 6th spot. Rooster Rodden and Woody Mahan complete row number 4, and Mark Pohl lines up last on the field from qualifying. iRacing pace car finally pulling the field away. JR, there's a lot of different ways you can run the rock. What's your preferred line around here?
Yeah, for me, in race conditions, it's around the bottom of the track, and that's just because I'm trying to save tires. That does not mean that that's the fastest way around. Obviously, in qualifying, we saw drivers really moving up the track to the middle and the higher lanes. But the bottom is where I like to be, just to back up my entry, let the truck rotate, and then be able to gauge how much throttle I need to use up off the corner to not spin the tires.
iRacing pace car ahead of the field. Caution lights are out atop it, so we are going to go green this next time by Brian Yazik in command of the field. He was our most recent winner. He won last week in Phoenix after a complete inversion of the field. He had an abysmal race number 1, learned a lot of stuff, really went back, did his homework for race number 2, and he made it look easy out there at the front of the field. There was a little bit of racing to be going on. It wasn't a cakewalk for him, but he did a great job at it. Green flag is out. We're underway here at the Rockingham. Everybody already getting very, very loose as we go to take the green. Michael Krobach kind of getting swamped here by Matt Press trying to take a look to the outside. Nothing doing there. Brian Yazik, though, out to a hugely down the back stretch. That's about 10 car lengths for him.
Yeah, and the thing we saw on the start there, don't expect we'll see too many restarts here tonight because of the field size, but you saw Brendan Marr in that outside lane spin the tires. That's something that's very normal here at this racetrack on starts and restarts. These drivers are going to have to adjust for that if we get another one.
On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the scoring pylon and 2 drivers' names highlighted in yellow. Those are the only 2 drivers currently with a shot at making it to the championship trophy spot. Currently it's Michael Krobach and Mike Rasmus, a battle of the mics here for the victory of the championship, and that's just because they have amassed a huge point lead over the rest of the field. And practically everybody in this race made the chase, but those guys are putting on an absolute clinic.
Yeah, they absolutely have been, and it's become easier for them to try to do that just because of these smaller field sizes. If it's a little bit larger, obviously that's going to be harder to do. There's more competition, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of drivers that are going to be out there that are not racing for the chase, not racing for that championship. They're just out here to win and run for those race wins. And when you come up on those drivers, you got to be a little bit cautious, because if you're in that points hunt, you do not want to mess around with somebody who's hungry for a win.
Up here riding along board with Brian Yazik, looking out over his deck lid and the spoiler. You see Brandon Marr just behind him, and then Mr. Consistency in that silver truck there in the 3rd position. A sizable gap back to the 4th place car. That's Michael Krobach. Those 2 cars in 3rd and 4th again, running for the championship. They're the only 2 with a reasonably good chance of becoming the championship point winner this season. Alrighty, Kenny, you got a lot of guys kind of migrating up off the bottom.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised to see that. You know, every time I've run here, I've done pretty much what JR was talking about and run that bottom line, not because it's necessarily faster, but in the long run, it is way faster when you force yourself to stay on that bottom line. It keeps you disciplined down there, and makes it so you don't necessarily overdrive the truck. As we got contact for the lead, a 3-way battle is going to maybe turn into a 3-way wreck. And they all saved it. That was crazy. But here comes Michael Krobach, might take advantage.
Yeah, look at that. Michael Krobach sliding up through the field there. Lots of contact made between Brandon Marr and Brian Yazik. I'm really surprised both those guys saved those trucks. Looked like Mike Rasmus was even going to get a piece of it. He went for a little bit of a slide as well. Checked up. No contact, it looks like, for him. He's still out there doing well, but boy, that Brandon Marr machine looks like a little bit of damage on that truck. He's got some handling issues already, and at the front end of the field, Mr. Consistency has really cut down the gap to our leader. All over his tailgate right now, looking to the bottom side to take the lead down the front stretch. Yazik's going to have a decent amount of momentum, but Yazik is out there on the high side. Rasmus kind of just cutting the dog leg of the front stretch.
Yeah, Brian Yazik's been doing a great job up to this point, but this is the type of track, the type of race that Mike Rasmus is extremely good at. So, yeah, look for him to continue to make up time, especially as those tires get worn.
Yazik resolutely running the high side. He'll remain in control of the lead. Rasmus going to have to slot back into the second position right now, kind of just bide his time. Only 10 laps into the 60-lap affair. Kenny, we haven't talked too much about pit stops, but already the lap times have fallen off quite a bit. You look at race leader, or championship points leader, Michael Krobach, his fastest lap was a 24 flat. Right now these guys are running about a half a second slower from that. We're only 10 laps into the race.
Yeah, and these guys can run up to 45, maybe 50 laps on a tank of fuel. It's a 60-lap race, so you could pit right now, really, and you could make it to the end on fuel. And but expect to see drivers go at least to halfway, maybe a bit further than that before they make that one pit stop. But I feel like if one of these leaders pits, it's going to drag the rest of them down pit lane just because of the time difference that is made with new tires. Oh, Yazik hit the wall pretty good off of turn 2.
Yeah, tried to stay even there with Mr. Rasmus as they came off the corner. Consistency, I should say, Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus. Yazik loses a lot of time, gets stalled out down the backstretch. That makes way for Michael Krobach to bring himself into the second position. Now he can set his sights on new leader Mike Rasmus up there in the top spot. Keep an eye, though, on Brian Yazik. Really good at saving his tires on these longer runs, as is Krobach. I expect to see those two drivers stay up there in this top 3 or 4 car battle. Matt Presto looking very strong as well.
Yeah, he is. He's recovered nicely after that dust up that we saw a little bit earlier, but yeah, he's starting to move forward. Matt Press, Brendan Marr, both of those drivers starting to make up time on Brian Yazik right here.
Press now takes over the third position, the last spot on the podium for Brian Yazik. We'll see how good he is at keeping up with him. Up at the front end of the field, there is a second gap right now between the two Mikes. Rasmus in the lead, Krobach in second. Rasmus ever so slightly pulling away. Hard to say if that's pace difference right now or how hard either driver is pushing, JR.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to tell because you want to save tires, so you know that the drivers that are up front on a regular basis, like Mike Rasmus, like Michael Krobach, those drivers know what they're doing, so they're probably going to be saving some tires here, but even so, they're going to have fall off, and if I'm Michael Krobach at this moment, I don't think I'm going to push too hard to try to catch Mike Rasmus. What I'm going to do is just try to stay within a second, second and a half, and then look at short pitting ahead of him when that round of pit stops comes up.
Brendan Marr now all over the rear end of Brian Yazik. Yazik doing a really nice job of just being up there, right up almost on the wall, Kenny. It's amazed me so far how many times he hasn't hit the wall with how often he's been right up there against it.
Yeah, it is something that you flirt with if you decide to run that high line here at the Rock. But I've been a little bit shocked to see everybody running that high of a line this early in the race. However, with this being kind of a sprint race with less fuel on board, that might actually be attributing to why drivers are migrating up to the top and not taking the conservative low line, because they're not having to run as long as you may have to on a full tank of gas, which would typically be 80, 90-ish laps. We're only, as Marr is really loose in turn 3, but this is really a short race, so that may promote a more aggression, driving a little bit harder, but you're still seeing the effects of the tire wear as the field is spreading out more and more.
So now Brennan Marr falls back a little bit further. Oh, yeah, into the outside wall. He's going to get passed by Woody Mahan here as they go into turns 3 and 4. Mahan down there in the bottom. That's another driver very good at conserving his tire wear as the race goes on. He'll take a spot, puts him up into 5th.
Yeah, and you're going to continue to see that, not just during this run, but in that second run. The drivers that are taking care of their stuff, they may not be the ones up front or turning those fast lap times early on, but they're going to be the drivers that have the most stable-looking truck underneath them as that run goes on. And if you have that stability, you're able to move around and set up passes on those other drivers.
Two-car battle going on. That blue and yellow truck, that's the 01 machine of Rooster Rod. Just behind him, it green and white car, the 56, the truck, excuse me, of Mark Polo. Those two drivers in 8th and 9th position, respectively. This is the closest battle, with the exception of Marr and Cohn out on the racetrack. Ooh, Marr hard into the inside wall. That'll be the end of his night.
Oh, and it looked like he got really loose off of turn 4. He had gotten loose there previously when he was trying to get by Brian Yazik, and that time spun into the pit lane. No safer barrier on that inside wall, and that destroys his truck, so he will most likely start on pole in race number 2.
Yeah, he's got a long time to wait around. I wouldn't really blame him if he left the server in between the races, but hopefully for his sake he stays around. It's going to be a big opportunity to come home with a win by starting on the pole tonight, especially at a place like Rockingham. Ryan Yazik being chased down here by Woody Mahan in the 84. Mahan's usually a driver, JR, that has very good tire wear, especially throughout the race run, but I have a feeling that damage he got by just hitting the outside wall a little bit that time coming off of turn 2, that's really put a damper on the handling of his race truck, and so far the 84 machine of Mahan looks pretty darn speedy.
Yeah, for sure. Woody's ran a very clean race up to this point, and we talked about he's extremely good at saving the tires. This is the type of track where he can really excel in the long run. And yeah, I think you're right with Brian just touching that wall early on. I mean, he hit it pretty good off of turn 2. That's going to affect that right front a little bit as far as some of the downforce that you have. It's going to probably make that truck a little bit tighter on him. And I've got a feeling that Brian was trying stuff in race number 1 here. He was probably pushing pretty hard early on as well, so he's probably used up some of those front tires more than what these other drivers have done. You can see him still struggling right now. But we saw last week he made big adjustments to his driving style in race number 2 and was able to come back and capture the win.
Yeah, and to be fair, I can't really blame Yazik for his approach to this race. He's starting on pole. He hasn't often had many opportunities to do that race number 1, so go ahead, throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, see how bad the tire wear is, and just kind of ride it out, see how you do. So far, not the greatest, but still has a decent amount to recover here before the race ends. And of course, there is always race number 2. You saw that battle for position out on track. Mark Poe getting around Rooster Rodden, and Mark Cohn, the watchman, making his way around Brian Yazik. That'll put Cohn up into the top 5.
It looks like Rooster Rodden now making a pit stop. He would look like he was struggling, so we'll see if he takes 4 tires and comes back out. Pretty long and slow pit road here at Rockingham, and expect to see everybody else making their pit stop here pretty soon as we get closer to halfway.
Oh, it's a pretty good time for it. We're about halfway through the race here. Again, sprint race shorter. These drivers can do Kenny's image, about 45-50 laps on fuel. We're about halfway through the race so far. I think it's a great idea to go ahead and pit now. Use that undercut to your advantage, but don't drive the thing so hard. You got to play defense too much before the end here. Looking at the 56 of Mark Poe, running down the 55 of Brian Yazik. This is for the 6th spot.
Yeah, and this is where it really starts to pay if you took care of your stuff early on. If you were not running those fast lap times, you can really start to make passes. The unfortunate thing is we do not have really long runs here, so we're right at that pit cycle window. So you're starting to make passes, but this is also when everybody else is going to start to pit and start to have more speed compared to what you have.
Matt Press brings his 60 machine down pit road, as does leader Mike Rasmus. So now Michael Krobach will cycle to the lead.
Yeah, and Austin, that's important that Krobach's going to try to lead this lap, because Rasmus led a lap. He got the bonus points for doing that. Krobach leading the lap will also get those bonus points. That takes away some of the bleeding, assuming that Krobach's not able to finish ahead of Rasmus in this race.
And now, talking about stopping the bleeding, Krobach brings his truck down pit road just to go ahead and minimize that effect of the undercut. Yazik brings the 55 truck down pit road as well, leaves Woody Mahan out on the racetrack with Mark Cohn, the watchman, and Mark Poe.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody stay out long just to see if they can catch a caution or something, just because they know they're not going to drop that many positions, even if it doesn't work out. At the moment, Cohn and Poe, the Mark and Mark show, out in 1-2 right now.
Yeah, and from my standpoint, that is not a bad thing to do, because here's the thing. We know it's not a big field. The likelihood of having cautions is not very high, but we're having these round of pit stops. You're going to have drivers on new tires versus old tires, and also the handling of this truck is going to be drastically different after putting those fresh tires on. So the drivers could very well just make a mistake on their own out there and bring out that caution.
Yep, and JR talking about that leading laps. That's 5 points for leading one or more laps. So it's definitely a thing you want to go out there and make sure you do, just at least to make sure you lead one lap per race. That's 5 points you don't want to leave out there on the table.
Yeah, and because, we see tonight Scott Eckridge is not here, that essentially takes him out of the chance for winning the championship. It's coming down to Mike Rasmus and Michael Krobach. Krobach has that points lead right now. He needs to do everything he can to minimize any damage from finishing behind Michael Rasmus. So that's what he's looking to do. That's why he stayed out that time and led that other lap, just to get that bonus point, because he knows that anything can happen in these races. He could very well get taken out in someone else's accident, so he's trying to get everything he can.
Really can't say I blame the strategy here of Mark Cohn to go ahead and stay out on the racetrack. Probably going to run this truck out of fuel. You see Mark Cohn saying he's had enough. He'll bring his truck down pit road this time by. Mark Poe would just, you saw him on pit road before. Here comes the watchman.
Yeah, so it looks like they just cut their losses. They decide to not run all the way to the end of their fuel life, so that will reset the field and put Mike Rasmus, who's on screen now, back up to the point. He did pit one lap earlier than Michael Krobach, so Krobach has 1 lap fresher tires, but the gap to Rasmus, from Rasmus back to Krobach, is big enough to where I don't think Rasmus will have much to deal with unless we get a caution or if he makes a mistake.
Let's see Mark Cohn exiting the pits now. Your leader is Mike Rasmus. It's almost down to about a 5-second lead here over Michael Krobach. We're still on lap 38 of 60, so just about 2/3 of the way through this race. And Jared, this is where it becomes very interesting, because these drivers no longer have an idea of how fast they should be running compared to their competitors, because everybody is spread out. There's 5 seconds between first and second, another 4 or 5 seconds between second and third, 4 seconds between third and fourth, and another 3 on back between 4th, 5th, and 6th. So very, very difficult to gauge how fast you should be pushing yourself or your 4 Goodyear tires.
Yeah, it's very true, and the best spot in the house is Mike Rasmus, because he's got that almost 5-second lead. He can kind of look at his relative and just gauge how fast he needs to be running based on what Michael Krobach's doing. He can actually even run a little bit slower and save those tires even more. See, just scraped the wall just barely off of turn 2. He'll get away with that one. But the rest of those drivers being spaced out, it can kind of get into your head. You're going to start thinking, hey, I need to push harder to catch that driver in front of me. So it could lead to potential mental mistakes or an accident on the racetrack that could potentially bring out a caution late here.
Robach ever so slightly eating into the lead here of Rasmus, but again, it's always, you have to wonder how hard is everybody else pushing. You might be running around here at 70% and you're really catching up to a guy, and it's because he's running around at 50% just the same. Somebody can be hot on your heels running you down about a half a second per lap, and it's because they're pushing like there's no tomorrow and just kind of giving up the ghost on their tires before it really becomes worthy, per se, of that entire race pace.
Yeah, one thing I think what I would be doing in this situation, since the gap between all the drivers is so large, most drivers are probably going to finish where they are right now. I'd be experimenting with lines, trying different things. I would also, experiment with tire wear a bit, see how well I can conserve those tires for this length of a run. So that maybe I can apply that to the next race. Maybe I can find some more speed somewhere. This has kind of turned into one big practice session, so just getting in a rhythm and running the laps out to the end, you can gain from it still. You can try to learn something here.
Looking here at Mark Cohn, the watchman, this is a battle for position. Cohn again pitted a lot later than everyone else, so he's kind of playing catch up to the rest of the field. You see Brian Yazik in the 55 truck got a decent amount of damage on the right front corner of that race truck, kind of ruined the splitter just a little bit, taking a lot of front downforce off that thing, becoming a lot tighter of a race car. Mark Cohn, the watchman, just goes on down to the bottom. He'll take over the 6th position. He's now got a 4-second lead up to Rooster Rod. And again, Rooster, I believe he was the first driver to bring his truck down pit road. There he is in that 01 truck. Again, 4 seconds up the road from Mark Cohn. Mark's got about 15 laps to get up there and catch him. Keep you apprised of that situation as the race continues to unfold.
Yeah, and right now Mark is running about a half second faster than what Rooster is, and that was while he was passing Brian Yazik, so he's potentially going to be even faster than that. So he'll definitely be chasing him down, but whether or not his tires fall off to the point of what Rooster Rodden is experiencing will be yet to be seen. Just depends on how hard Mark is driving that car at the moment, but he's definitely faster moving forward at this time.
And Yazik with a tank slapper into the wall off turn 2 there, hit it with the front and rear end of the truck, and he's got to be really careful now, as just Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus, as he comes up to put Yazik a lap down. He'll be the second truck 1 lap down, joining Mark Poe as laps down on the racetrack, and of course Brandon Marr 25 laps down after just losing the rear end of the truck ever so slightly off of turn number 4, and making hard contact with the inside wall down pit road, blowing the engine pretty much on impact. Boy, this is really going to slow down Rasmus. You saw he caught Yazik by a lot. Yazik just lifts ever so slightly before they go into turns 1 and 2, allows Rasmus to complete the pass. But Mr. Consistency has been pretty much eking out a gap on every driver but 2. Michael Krobach in the 2nd position, that gap's pretty much stayed the same, about 4.6 to 4.8 seconds. And that driver in the 6th position, Mark Cohn, that gap has stayed pretty consistent at about 22 or so seconds back. So he's been doing a whale of a job just to kind of stay with Rasmus right now. Granted, he does have a little bit fresher tires, but not by a whole lot. Not a staggering difference, I should say, between the lifespan of those 2 tires.
I think one driver they'll be looking for redemption in race number 2 will be Brian Yazik. He qualified on pole, on pace for this race number 1, and he has dropped all the way down to 7th place in this one. And so he's going to get a pretty good starting spot for race number 2. And he's got good pace out of the gate, but he's made a few mistakes, gotten up into the wall a couple times. But more importantly, he's not done a very good job of taking care of his tires. So I think he's kind of been learning here the hard way, and maybe he can apply that, what he's learning right now, into race number 2, because he'll still, again, more contact in the outside wall. But he will have another chance at redemption in race number 2.
Ever since I talked about those gaps, Rasmus has eked out a lead. He's got about 4 or 5 tenths more over Krobach and 9 tenths more over Mark Cohn. Cohn's now just barely got a second or so before he catches up to Rooster Ryan. As you see, Mr. Consistency there. Just kissed the outside wall through turns 3 and 4. And JR, you talked about it at the top of the broadcast. These guys continue to run higher and higher up the racetrack as the race goes on.
Yeah, they absolutely do, and some drivers are better at it than other drivers, and that's where the ones that are really good at it can make up a ton of time from the middle part of the run to the end. Oh, we actually see Rasmus get into the wall a little bit there. I don't think it's going to affect him a ton, but he is searching around, and this is what I like. So he's the leader of the race, and he has an over 5-second lead here. You would think he's just going to ride around and manage that lead, but right now Mike is searching around this track. He's trying to see where the speed is, where the speed isn't, where the grip is, where the grip is not. He's learning right now, and he's going to apply those, he's going to apply that knowledge as he goes into race number 2. So this competition, they need to be doing something similar. They need to be figuring out what they can do going into race number 2. Otherwise, Mike Rasmus is likely to run away with an even greater lead in the finish of that one.
Right, just a little bit up into the outside wall. That's going to allow Mark Cohn, the watchman, to take an easy position for him. That puts the watchman now up into the 5th position. Just about 5 laps to go here in this race. And JR, it's interesting that you mentioned how much Rasmus is moving around on the racetrack. It's practically a test and tune session for him, doing a little bit of R&D out on the racetrack. And there you see our leader, Mr. Consistency, now coming up to put a lap on Rooster Rod in the 0-1 machine.
Yeah, and this is good experience for Rasmus as well going into race number 2, catching some of these lap trucks. He's not had a ton of traffic in this race, but this is going to allow him to see how he needs to maneuver through the field in race number 2, since he will be starting in the back after winning this one, assuming that he's able to hold on to it the next 5 laps. But this is good experience for him. He can learn a lot going through these trucks here.
Another thing I'll be curious about in race number 2 is the fact that the weather could be different in race number 2. And right now it's 83-degree ambient temp, 124-degree track temp. So it's hot and greasy out there. The grip level is about the lowest that it could possibly be at this racetrack that's already abrasive. So we'll have to see what the weather does. If it changes, if the track temperature will drop, that means the lap times will also drop, and the tire wear might drop a little bit as well.
Heat sign from part of the flagman as the drivers go by this time by. 2 laps to go. Mike Rasmus only needs to get the white flag and then the checkered at this point. Easy sailing for him right now. He's got about 7 seconds back to Michael Krobach in the 2nd position, and Krobach himself has about 7 seconds or so back to Matt Press. Matt Press, though, falling under attack from Woody Mahan here just behind him. We'll have to keep our eyes on that battle, but the rules dictate we follow the leader as he takes his final rotation around the track in race number 1. Mike Rasmus, he's won a lot this season. It feels like, though, JR, it's been a hot minute since he's been in victory lane. He's won numerous times, though, on the season. Coming to get the checkered flag this time by off turn number 4. Will be win number 9 on the season for the driver of the 68 truck. And the battle I was just talking about between Press and Mahan, looks like it's going to go to Press here. Oh, he's going to get loose. Does he save the car? Does Mahan get there? Mahan gets loose. Doesn't quite go for the pass in the grass. It's going to be Press. And with that, we're going to take about a 1.5-minute break. We'll be right back in about 90 seconds.
This is your chance to get behind the wheel. The opportunity to race just like the pros. From the grassroots levels, where we all got our start, to the most popular race cars on the planet. From the fairgrounds of Nashville to the high banks of Daytona, to tracks that will never be forgotten. Realistic driving, intense competition, all from the comfort of your own home. This is the ultimate motorsports simulation. This is iRacing. This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
Welcome back to the Wreckingham Twin 60s, presented by Yaz's Sandwiches and More. We're here at Rockingham Speedway. We just wrapped up race number 1, an exciting 60-lap first feature. Here's how everything played out on the track. Mike Rasmus took home the victory with Michael Krobach in the second position. Matt Press rounded out the podium positions with an amazing sideways run to the checkered flag there over Woody Mahan, who finishes in the fourth position. And then Mark Cullen, the watchman, last car on the lead lap. Rooster Rod in sixth, Brian Yazik in seventh, Mark Poe eighth, Brendan Marr rounds out your 9-car field. Now we'll go ahead and bring in race number 1 winner here, Mr. Consistency, Mike Rasmus. Mike, honestly, you made it look easy, man, and this is a tough track to drive.
Yeah, I was taking it easy too, and I still had a couple moments where I almost didn't make it out of the turn. So it looked easy, I suppose, but based on the gap, but it was not easy.
Well, you're going to be starting last on the field here with the whole inversion for race number 2. Did you learn anything in the first race? We saw you kind of adventuring, maybe trying some different stuff out, some different lines on the racetrack at the end of race number 1.
Yeah, it can be hard to figure out where to go. After about 20 laps, the tires just kind of fall off, regardless of how you treated them. The rears just kind of go, and you're loose. You're loose in, you're loose in the middle, and you're loose off. So I was trying to find, like, maybe if I change my line, I could find some grip, but there is none to be had. So yeah, just doing my best. I think I learned how to drive over the course of a run, how to drive the truck, but I think everyone is going to be a lot faster this race, so I think it's going to be a lot harder to get to the front.
For sure. Also, I want to talk about the championship fight here between you and Mr. Krobach. Scott Eckridge not here tonight. That effectively takes him out of the running for the championship. So it's just the two of you guys. Are you running any more aggressive in these last couple races here? Because you have to gain a lot of spots on Krobach to really have a shot at the title.
Yeah, I've been running a little bit more aggressive than I usually do all year long. It's gotten me into a little bit of trouble too. So this is new ground for me, driving more aggressively. But I like what I've been doing all season, and I love racing against Krobach. He's really fast, and he's a great guy, and races clean. And so I'm just here to have fun, and I'm glad I'm up there. But I'm just excited about running at Rockingham, and next time is Old Atlanta, which is super fun in the Gen 4. So I'm just going to have a good time, and we'll see where we stack up at the end.
For sure. Mike, before we let you out of here for race number 2, the floor is yours. You can thank everyone who makes this whole deal possible for you in the 68 team.
I want to thank you all in the booth for participating, and everybody who stuck around at PGRL at the end of the season. It was a long year, and we've been through a lot. So, you know, everybody that stuck it out here is a good person, really loyal person, and fun to race with. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, Mike, congratulations on your win, and good luck in race number 2.
Thank you.
That was Mike Rasmus, Mr. Consistency, winner of race number 1. He'll have to, if he wants to repeat the win here tonight in race number 2, he'll have to do it from dead last on the field again. It's a complete inversion from the finishing results for race number 1 as we head into the qualifying order here for race number 2. Brendan Marr starts on pole. He'll have Mark Poe lining up to his outside. Brian Yazik rolls off in the 3rd position. He'll have Rooster Rod starting next to him in the 4th position. Rounding out your top 5 starters, Mark Cullen, the watchman, He has Woody Mahan lining up to his outside in the 6th position. Strong run for Mahan in race number 1. Matt Press will roll off in the 7th position, followed by championship points leader Michael Krobach, who starts in the 8th position, and rolling off at 9th spot, the winner of race number 1, Mike Rasmus, Mr. Consistency. So, Kenny, from race number 1 to race number 2, what are some things you're going to have your eye on? What caught your eye? What did you learn in the first race?
Well, there's definitely a few drivers that did a good job taking care of their stuff, taking care of their tires, and others that did not. So I'm looking for some drivers to maybe approach this start a little bit differently, maybe some be a little less aggressive in order to have something for the end. And I think the focus, honestly, too, is going to be minimizing mistakes. You know, quite a few drivers got up into the outside wall. Didn't necessarily take them out, but it certainly didn't help them either. So I think drivers will have some lessons that they learned in race number 1 that they'll try to apply here in number 2.
iRacing pace car leading the field through turns 3 and 4. It's going to give command of the field over to Brennan Marr here in just a second. It's going to make the hard left turn down pit road. There it goes. And now it's off to Brennan Marr in terms of when we start this race. We're back green flag racing here for the second of 2 Wreckingham Twin 60s presented by Yaz's Sandwiches and More. Mark goes up to the high side, leaves the bottom open for Yazik. Mark Poe up there as well. He's just to the outside of Brian Yazik. And look at Woody Mahan. He's going to have a huge run going down the backstretch.
Yeah, Mahan does, but Krobach's going to take it 3 wide through 3 and 4. He should have the advantages come off here. Almost 4 wide there, guys, and there's contact.
Yeah, I don't know how in the world Krobach saved that truck as they came off turn 4. Almost looked like he was heading straight for the outside wall. How he held on. Oh, almost 3 wide as they turn number 2. Yazik looked like he in the outside. Forced to check up just behind him. More free spots for the team now. Lots of momentum behind the Krobach.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing right now, guys, is that Michael Krobach is charging hard. He's trying to take this race under his control. Meanwhile, Mike Rasmus, he's not made up any ground. He's doing a different approach. He's taking it easy on his stuff, so he's got something to work with toward the end of this run.
Yeah, obviously, Michael Krobach's philosophy here is to get to the front as soon as possible and basically force Rasmus to chase him down. Rasmus, I think, is going to be calm and cool here. Just pick the drivers off one at a time, even though he's still kind of roadblocked there behind the only side-by-side battle we got going on. And right there, finally, things have single-filed out, and now he can go up to the front. Oh, Yazik is into the outside wall, comes down, tags the inside wall. He'll keep the truck straight. We'll stay green, but that will take him out of contention. That might have really done some damage to his 55 machine.
Yeah, a lot of body damage on that thing. Slaps the outside wall. Sideways field slaps the inside wall for good measure. Just to even up both sides of the truck there. He's in the outside wall again. He's got a lot of damage, JR.
Yeah, I think he's going to probably call it quits here after that. But, you know, the one thing that we heard from Mike Rasmus in his interview is that these trucks are free here tonight. So that was one thing that Brian was battling with up off the corner, trying to apply that throttle. The truck just got a little bit loose, and you're so close to the wall, you just don't have room to save it. The car corrects back any at all, you're going to hit that outside wall, and that's what happened there. So the rest of these drivers, they're going to have to recognize what happened to Brian here early and make sure that they don't do the same thing.
Yeah, speaking of getting close to the wall, that time by off turn 4, Rooster Rod was so close to the wall, you saw a little puff of smoke as he exited the corner. He's got Krobach onto his inside. We'll see if Krobach can clear himself. He does. Oh, Rooster Rod hard in the outside wall. That was one heck of a lick.
Yeah, it absolutely was. It was hard to tell if it was just him trying to apply the throttle too much or wasn't expecting Krobach to come up there. He's continuing to make some contact. That's going to be Matt Press doing a great save, getting loose down to the inside of the track. I cannot tell you how hard that was to save that truck on this abrasive surface. When the truck gets that far sideways and that low on one of the straightaways, the truck just skates around like it's on ice. So that was a great job there. 3 truck battle here. This is between Mahan, Poe, and Marcone.
This is for the 6th position. Out on the racetrack, you see another 3-wide battle here. Rasmus, Press, and Rodden. Those 3 trucks battling for the 3rd position.
Yeah, this is not where Rasmus wants to be. He's currently kind of locked in by these 2 drivers, Rooster Rodden and Matt Press. He doesn't really have a whole lot of options or anywhere to go, and both of these drivers have had some issues early on. So Mike really wants to get by these guys. There's just nowhere he can go at the moment to do that.
Yeah, to be fair to him, though, he's doing a great job of just being patient. He's going to let the positions come to him, just like the track and this race truck being a really just solid, smooth driver of it so far. A couple more corners, he should be able to clear himself around Matt Press, and then he can really start to attack Rooster Rodden. But the harder these guys race him, the harder he's going to find it to conserve his tires.
Yeah, and man, if I'm Mike, I'm wanting to go hard here just to try to clear these guys. They're racing him hard, which that's what they're going to do. They're here to win the race or have the best finish of their season. So they're going to race him hard, but he's got to try to be smart because he's in this championship battle, and he's clear of Matt Press there. He's now going to go to the inside. He should be able to clear both drivers off of 4.
Yeah, shoots down to the bottom. Not even a slider line, just using the bottom to his advantage. Gets around Rooster Rodden. See if Matt Press can go with him using that bottom line as well. He continues to stick to that middle route. He is going to pass Rooster Rodden, though, as well.
Yeah, and we saw in race number 1 that, we saw Matt Press. He had to do some avoidance earlier, got a little bit loose, probably heated those tires up a little bit. Now he gets in the turn 4 wall there. I was just about to brag about him a little bit in race number 1. After we got to the 15-20 lap mark, he was one of the drivers that still had some speed and was moving forward before that first round of pit stops. But Austin, looks like he's struggling a little bit here.
Yeah, not having the greatest runs so far for the second 7 laps here of the race. Taking a look up at the lead, though, about a half a second between Brendan Marr and Michael Krobach. It was about a whole second and a half. Just a couple laps to go, so Krobach has done a whale of a job to run him down, but it's one thing to catch a guy, it's another thing to pass him, and Marr looks like he's got quite the handful so far.
Yeah, and remember, Marr only ran about 20 laps in race number 1, so we don't really know what his long run speed is, what he's capable of, but it looks like Krobach, even though he's been aggressive in race number 2, he's got a pretty good truck underneath him. Still relatively early into this race, but he has run Marr down, who hasn't had any pressure yet up until this point, and I think Krobach's going to want to make this pass as quickly as possible and extend that lead as much as he can before the one and only pit stop.
Yeah, it's really tough to know, too. You might see Brandon Marr's got a lot of practice laps, too, but he doesn't have practice running the truck at race pace in a race setting, just like this one, and everybody else has had to do 2 stints of this already. For Marr, this is probably the longest he's run with A, a clean truck, and B, at this pace in a race scenario. He also hasn't had clean air all day, so he's been up there with the lead for a while, and it's really difficult at that point, JR, to know how hard you should push, and I think given by how far away he got from the pack and how fast he did it, he might have burned up his stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We see him sliding around out here, and Michael Krobach, he's going to go to the inside in turn 3, but you mentioned it being out front. The reason why that's important tonight is because we know these trucks are loose, so when you're out front, you've got more downforce on that front end. That's going to make that condition even worse. The truck's going to want to rotate more and bite in as you turn the steering wheel through the corners. So it's actually not a bad thing to be right behind somebody. So I wasn't surprised that Michael Krobach didn't try to immediately make that pass, because he could run behind Marr for a few laps there, actually get his truck to tighten up a little bit, heat those front tires up to try to neutralize the handling of this vehicle.
Krobach has pulled the. Go ahead, Kenny.
I was going to say, I was watching the lap times, and while Krobach was behind Marr, he was losing 2 to 3 tenths of a second per lap, which is a huge margin to be giving up. You could visually see the difference every lap, and you can actually see now Rasmus is pretty much in the same camera shot as the other 2 leaders as now he approaches Marr. If he can make quick work of the 51 truck, Rasmus is probably going to get up to Krobach relatively quickly, because even in clean air, Krobach is still running laps that are 1 to 2 tenths slower than what Rasmus was running when he was by himself.
Yeah, let's also remember too, Krobach was very aggressive at the start of this race, taking trucks 3, 4 wide, lap after lap, really giving it the beans, and Rasmus was kind of just back there biding his time, kind of taking what the track and the other trucks would give him. Looks like he, not quite going to clear himself. No, he will. Oh, he might have gotten loose there with a little bit of help from the 51 truck. Mark going to back off, let Rasmus have it.
Yeah, I think Rasmus was confused whether he was clear there or not, and was kind of putting a lot of will into it to try to avoid sliding up. But I think that created that loose condition off of turn 2. But yeah, exactly right. What both of you have been talking about with Michael Krobach. He charged hard. Oh, see Brendan Marr get into the wall hard off of turn 2. That may end his race right here, guys.
Yeah, that truck looks injured. Looks like he's gonna bring it down to pit road this time by. Going for a little bit of a slide. Check the entries tab to see if he has the meatball flag. He does not. He should be the second driver out of this race. Brian Yazik already manually disconnected from the session, so only 8 drivers in the server so far. And Marr is in the pits, probably going to be the end of his night. Ooh, Mark Cohen going for a big old slide, but the watchman saves it.
Yeah, this is when the track is definitely becoming tricky. Kenny mentioned the track temp. It's down almost 20 degrees from race number 1, but it's still giving these drivers a lot of fits out there, because after you get 20, 25 laps on these tires like where we're at right now, this truck is really sliding around. It's going to be very, very easy, and you're talking about throttle application just being 5% more than what you did the previous lap could be just enough to send this truck sideways up off the corner and into the wall, like we've seen a couple of these drivers do so far. So these drivers really, really have to be mentally thinking about everything they're doing. This is one of those tracks where it can be very mentally exhausting, because you're constantly having to adjust what you're doing inside that truck.
And Mike Rasmus is making those proper adjustments, because as he's gotten back into relatively clean air, he's now beating Michael Krobach by anywhere from 1/10 to 2/10 per lap. So the longer that Krobach stays out here, the better for Rasmus. If I'm the 68 truck, I'm just going to watch Krobach, probably just pit when he does, honestly. But until then, I'm just going to keep eating away at this time delta. And again, beats him by nearly 1/10.5 that lap. So Rasmus is loving this, and he's got a few more laps until halfway, when most likely Michael Krobach will pit.
Yeah, and you can visually see the distance between these two trucks getting smaller and smaller every single corner. That's no doubt something both these drivers are paying attention to. Rasmus out the windshield, Krobach out the rear view mirror, and JR, it's kind of a helpless feeling when you know you're out there kind of on pins and needles, and somehow the driver behind you, oh, by the way, your championship competitor, continues to gain on you by 1/10 to 1/10.5 every single lap.
Yeah, it kind of puts Krobach in a position where he's going to have to think of other ways to try to win this race, whether that's short pitting or potentially staying out, just hoping that somehow we get a caution. But we talked about it earlier, this short field or this small field, that's probably not going to allow for any cautions here tonight.
As soon as these drivers cross the start-finish line this time by, we'll officially be halfway through the race. Krobach going to bring his truck to pit road this time by, hoping to go for the undercut. Rasmus crucially gaining those 5 bonus points. Rodden in the outside wall as Cohen and Press bring their trucks down to pit road as well.
Now this in-lap and out-lap for both of the leaders is going to be really important here. We'll see how much longer that Mike Rasmus stays out. I think he'll pit this time, and he does. That'll leave just Rooster Rodden out there as the only driver who hasn't pit yet. Everybody pitted pretty much at the same time this race, other than Woody Mahan and Mark Poe. They pitted a little early. Rooster Rodden now will come in, and now the racetrack is nearly silent for a little bit as everybody's in the pit lane.
Yeah, kind of like what you see in the current day NASCAR Cup Series race, where the first driver to come down pit road basically pulls everyone else out on the racetrack with him, because you just cannot afford to lose time because someone undercuts you down pit road and back out onto the racetrack. So as it stands, Rasmus is your leader, but Krobach should come around to pass him as he's exiting the pits this time by. It's going to be close. Krobach's going to have a lot of overspeed down the backstretch, but Rasmus is coming out of the pits. Here they meet out on the racetrack. Rasmus with cold tires, Krobach with hot, fresh ones. There's the gap. Pretty much the same as it was before either of those drivers pit, and Rasmus has a little bit fresher tires.
I have a feeling that Rasmus did better on either the in-lap, the out-lap, or just time in the pit lane, because he had a 0.3 of a second slower pit stop than Krobach, and he pitted 1 lap later, so theoretically Krobach should have probably extended his gap, his lead a little bit, but instead it's pretty much evened out, so that tells me that the in-lap and the out-lap by Rasmus was a little bit better. But he is dropping just a hair as he tries to get those tires up to temperature, but I think he's just trying to be smooth with it. He's got plenty of time, no other traffic to worry about other than that 72 up ahead.
Yeah, ideally when you talk about the lead between these two drivers, Krobach should have basically gained about 1.5 seconds just on that pit road entry alone. There's about a second fall off by the time that these drivers pitted, plus the 0.3 of a second slower pit stop that Rasmus had. But based on all that, either his in or his out lap or time on pit road an entire second faster than what Krobach was able to muster.
Yeah, and something else that Mike Rasmus might be doing right now is he's just kind of hanging back at an even pace, about 6-7 tenths behind the leader. JR, you can touch on this a little bit because this is something you taught me, and that's when you put new tires on the truck, you don't want to go absolutely 110% necessarily right away. You don't want to overheat those tires too quickly. You kind of want to wear them in, break them in a little bit, and then go a little bit harder.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to tire temperature is what it boils down to, but you do not want those tire temps getting extremely hot early on in that run, because if they do, they almost get to a point where no matter what you do as a driver, you're not going to be able to cool those temps back down to a manageable range. If you slowly allow those tire temps to come back up, you can get them to be in a range to where they will level out and you'll be able to have a consistent feeling truck throughout the rest of the run. So Rasmus is really good at doing that. We've seen him do it a lot this season. And one of the other things I think at the moment, why he's not trying to charge up there to race Michael Krobach is the fact that he knows if he goes up there early, Michael Krobach's got tire to work with, and Michael Krobach is going to fight him hard for that lead. So he doesn't want to try to get involved in that and potentially take himself out of even being able to finish this race. He wants to wait until these tires wear in, where he feels like he does have an advantage and he can try to move around and make that pass late in the run.
He continues to get closer and closer, though, to leader Michael Krobach. Now that leads down to about 3.5 or so tenths of a second. This is the second closest battle, just about or thereabouts on the racetrack. Matt Press and Mark Cohen, the watchman, very close together as well, about 0.5 second between those trucks.
Yeah, I think I would expect to see Rasmus kind of get up to the back end of Krobach as close as he can and then dive down to the bottom. Now, whether that means he's going to do a slide job or just kind of wrap the bottom like what he did earlier when he passed Brendan Marr remains to be seen. I think in Rasmus's mind, if he can get away with just wrapping the bottom for a corner and then coming up, that would be a better bet as opposed to being a little bit more risky and throwing the slide job. That's the more aggressive move, but it's definitely not outside the realm of possibility.
I will say, too, as both the runs have gone on, Rasmus has become increasingly more faster compared to Krobach, so he's probably just buying his time right now. JR, I've always seen where in the Bootleg Racing League races, you'll start a little bit deeper in the field, so when you start to pass the faster guys at the front as the race goes on, it's a lot later, the tire delta is larger, so you're just easily a little bit faster than those guys you're racing against, instead of if the tires were equalized, because you're so good at saving your stuff. And I think Rasmus is just a little bit extra better than Krobach at just raw speed, which always helps, and B, the tire wear. So I think he's just kind of waiting around until it's very easy for him to go up there and snatch the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like it's about that time where he's going to start working over Michael Krobach here to try to take that lead. He feels at this point that he has a tire advantage. He can start to try to move around, and he was able to nearly stay even with Krobach, but you can see that momentum from the high side that he's able to carry. This is why Rasmus did not want to go up there and fight him early on, because it would have just killed his tires. But right now he feels like he has the better handling vehicle. The only thing he's got to do is try to figure out how to get around it, how to set up this pass on Michael Krobach. It's going to be difficult because we've seen tonight how that high line is the dominant racing line. It's the one that can get the most speed out in the lap time. So, yeah, Rasmus is going to have to go to school here and figure out what he can do different in order to make this pass.
And it's so hard to pass on the bottom in a place like this when your car is so out of control, loose, because if you run the bottom, there's more wheel input in the truck, and when there's more wheel input on corner exit, Kenny, it just goes spinning into the infield, and it's likely what happened between Yazik and Marr. This place is famous for that happening, especially in iRacing, without that sort of a seat-of-the-pants feel when you come up off the corner.
Yeah, I really feel like this track here, if you can't get used to not having that seat of the pants feel, this track would be an absolute struggle bus, because of all the bumps and the forces that you would normally feel inside a race car here. You kind of have to just deal with that visually, looking at the truck oscillating up and down, and judging where to brake and to turn in and to get back on the throttle. Driving here is an art form, whether it be in real life or in the sim world. But quite a unique challenge, as there's really not another track like this on the service or really in real life either.
We're closing in on 10 laps to go here, and we are going to keep the camera on this battle. But Ryan, we haven't had a chance to talk about it so far. Let's look at the championship points just really quickly to sort of give more of an emphasis on why this battle out on the racetrack is so important. These are the point championship standings coming into today's two races. This does not take into account what happened in race number 1. You see Michael Krobach there in the first position in the point standings. Scott Eckridge just recently took over the second place position from Mike Rasmus there. See Rasmus now just behind the graphic looking to the bottom. I think it's be a hard rough going for him, but there you can see the distance in points. 4 points to get Rasmus there, so he's about 59 points behind Michael Krobach. So he's got a lot of ground to make up within 4 races here. He scored an extra 5 points over Krobach in race number 1. Let's see what he can do here in race number 2.
Yeah, and right now, Michael Krobach, obviously he's trying to stay ahead of Rasmus. He wants to win this race, but the other incentive for staying in front is that Mike Rasmus has not led any laps in this race at this point. I don't think. He might have led the lap when he stayed out, so I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if the third place vehicle was able to get around him. So if that's all even, then all they are fighting for is the win at this moment, because Krobach, it doesn't really matter if he finishes behind Rasmus. As long as he does that in this race and the remaining 2 races, he'll still win the championship. So he needs to be a little bit smart here, not race super hard, but obviously if you can win the race, go win it.
For sure. There you see the distance between those 2 trucks on the racetrack, about a half a truck length between them. Rasmus a little bit faster right now. Krobach, though, with the clean air, also can dictate what line he wants to run and force Rasmus to basically go around him if he wants it that bad. So far, Krobach resilient up top, staying resolute to that line, and that's really hard to go around him, JR.
Yeah, it's extremely hard. Especially when that truck is loose, just late in the run, running that higher line, it's going to be the line that works the best. But one thing I haven't really seen many drivers do, I kind of like to do when the car is not handling that well or it's loose, is I'll kind of take a higher entry into the corner. I'll turn down by the center of the corner and try to make a straighter exit, but do it on the bottom to middle side of the racetrack, and you can really get some runs on other drivers by doing that. A little bit surprised I haven't seen that here tonight, but I think that's ultimately what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to try to run a slightly different line in order to make these passes. You can't just continue to run right behind the driver in front of you. You see Mike Rasmus, he's trying to duck down a little bit now and run something different through 1 and 2.
Yeah, trying to sort of take a straighter entry off the corner. Now straightens his corner entry out. We'll see if he can do anything down there on the bottom. Again, though, lots of momentum on the high side for Krobach as he comes off turn number 4. I tell you what, Rasmus is going to have to really try something big here in the last couple laps, because everything he does, every time he pulls out a line, JR, he just bleeds more time.
He does, and you know, we saw on that last corner, or the last time he went through turns 3 and 4, excuse me, there's a bump toward the bottom of turn 4 and on the very exit there where the truck kind of goes over that crest, and when it does, it spins the rear tires if you are loose. So that's something you really have to watch out for. You can't really make a ton of time there at the end of the run. The one thing he's going to have to do is try a line where he's 1.5 lanes up from the very bottom of the exit of turn 4. Otherwise, he's going to continue to slip and slide, and Krobach's just going to drive away. So those are the type of things that you're learning and you're trying to adjust to as a driver so that you can potentially make that pass.
2 laps to go this time by for Marty the Flagman, the peace sign, if you will. Michael Krobach still your leader, looking to the field. Rasmus is second. Woody Mahan third. How about a podium here for Mahan if he can hold on to it? Matt Press in fourth. Mark Cohn, the watchman, in fifth. Great top 5 for him if he can continue going with this streak. Mark Poe there, 6th position. That's that white and green truck you see just ahead of these two out on the racetrack. 1 lap to go. White flag is in the air. It all comes down to this. They go off turn number 2. Poe brings his truck down to the bottom of the racetrack as to not impede on these two drivers' race. Krobach takes the high side. Rasmus just barely looking to the inside. Nothing doing there. He's going to try to power up on the outside. Gets loose off 4. Checkered flag again for Michael Krobach here at Rockingham. And again, we'll take another 1.5-minute break. We'll be right back here in 90 seconds to talk to your winner, Michael Krobach, and then wrap up the rest of the show. Welcome back to the Rockingham. We just finished race number 2 of 2. Go ahead and talk to winner of that race, Michael Krobach, in just a couple minutes here. But first, I'd like to put a big thank you out there for our sponsor for tonight's race, Yaz's Sandwiches and More. Located in Indian River, Michigan, Yaz's Sandwiches and More has been serving delicious summer lunches to northern Michigan residents and visitors for the past 5+ years. You can find them online at facebook.com/Yaz's Indian River. Michael Krobach comes home to win race number 2. Here's the entire finishing order from that race. Mr. Consistency, a little bit faster there at the end, but not faster enough to pass Krobach. So second place is all Rasmus could get. Woody Mahan finishes on the bottom step of the podium. A great result for Woody. How about Matt Press in the 4th position and Mark Cohn in 5th? A great run For the Watchmen, another Mark, that's Mark Poe, finishes in the 6th position. Rooster Rodden finishes in 7th. Those two drivers, the last two out on the racetrack under power. Brendan Marr, Brian Yazik, both those drivers got in the wall earlier on in the race, forced to disconnect from the session earlier before everything could come to a close. And now I think without further ado, JR, you've caught up with the winner here of race number 2, Mr. Michael Krobach.
Indeed, I have. Hey, Michael, congratulations on the big win here in race number 2 at Rockingham. Gotta walk through race number 1 to start with. I know you finished 2nd in that race, and obviously Mike Rasmus looked like he had a lot more pace than what you had throughout that entire run. What kind of adjustments did you make as a driver coming into race number 2? Because you definitely had plenty of speed to hold him off there.
Spent the entire warm-up watching Mike Rasmus's race 1 on fast forward, just trying to figure out what he was doing. I think I tried to drive more off the right front tire in race 2. Race 1 I was trying to conserve and just kind of do what I usually do, wrap the yellow line here and take care of the tires as much as I could, but I felt that, the right rear was going to burn off anyway, and doing that saved too much right front tire, and I just didn't have the overall speed that Mike did, so I figured, okay, well, we're going to do the exact opposite for race 2 and just drive the hell out of the car and see if it makes any difference. And I still think Mike was better than me, but I think clean air, made enough of a difference, and I was able to kind of match his line, pinch him a little bit when we were battling there for the lead, and hold off a hard charge in Rasmus because he was definitely faster.
Now, I want to touch on the point where you mentioned watching your competitors in order to improve what you're doing. I highly recommend that to the drivers that are trying to learn on the service out there. Don't be afraid to watch around and see what the other drivers are doing. Make those adjustments yourself and see if you can gain speed. So that's really cool to hear. This is your 5th win of the season, Michael. Yeah, that's a lot more than what we're typically used to seeing you have. You run up front constantly. And we see you have great finishes, but as far as going out and getting the wins, it's occasional here or there, but you've got 5 this season. What does that mean for you, first of all? But second of all, that's going to give you a very comfortable championship lead going into Atlanta next week for the championship finale.
Yeah, I think with Mike's and I finishes tonight, we kind of broke even, I think. I don't think he gained anything, or if anything, it was minimal. So I think we should have over a 50-point cushion heading into the finale, which means, hey, I got to show up. So no internet issues, none of that. And hopefully just run a strong race. Definitely, these races are super hard to win. I know some of these guys don't do a lot of official races or whatever it may be, so the iRating may not show for it, but there's a lot of guys in here that are super fast. So these races are super hard to win. I think any seat time is good seat time. I spent a lot of time at Darlington this week in officials, and we ended up getting 6 in a row in terms of checkered flags there. So I think we had a little bit of confidence coming into tonight. I didn't expect to go out and dominate or anything. I knew Mike was going to be fast, but just all about having that positive mindset and doing the best you can with the situation that you're in, and just try to maximize the points wherever you can take them. So, if that was race 1, staying out and leading the lap, that's what it meant. And I think we had a 2nd place car there and just kind of maximize the points we could and put us in good position for the finale.
Yeah, absolutely. Did exactly what you needed to do this week to go into that finale. I want to ask you, though, going into Atlanta next week, back in the Gen 4 car, what are your thoughts? You'd enjoy that track, car combination?
Yeah, any of these old tracks. I think it would be super fun if iRacing put together like an old throwback series schedule that just ran things like, Darlington, Rockingham, Wilkesboro, Old Atlanta, those sort of things. I think that would be a great series. If we can have Draft Masters, we can have something cool like that. So iRacing, if you're listening, think about the old tracks. We ran pretty good in the spring. I think we got wrecked early on and had a lot of damage, but came back, for a top 5 or something when we had a big field. So typically it's a pretty good track. I think we'll just have to see what the setup does, if it burns tight or loose, and just kind of manage accordingly. But all about kind of just maximizing our effort and doing the best we can and just seeing where the results fall.
Absolutely. Hey, Mike, before I let you go, who do you want to thank for your win here tonight?
I got to thank Kenny Kibbe for his constant criticism over the last 6 seasons. That's motivated me to be a better driver and rattle off 5 wins instead of 0. So shout out to Kenny. Got to thank Team Conti, Sim Performance, MC Squared Editing Services, everybody at PGRL for showing up tonight, and all of you guys for putting on a great broadcast. It's been a blast to watch, and go back and watch it tonight.
All right, we appreciate it, Mike. Hey, congratulations on win number 5 on the season, getting it done here in Rockingham, and look forward to talking to you again next week.
All right, thanks, brother.
All right, guys, that's Michael Krobach, our points leader and winner of race number 2. With that, I'm going to throw it back up to Austin to close us out for tonight.
Yeah, thanks, JR. Big congratulations and thank you to Michael Krobach for his time after his big win here at Rockingham. JR, this place is a lot of fun to race as a driver. It's a ton of fun to watch as a spectator, especially to broadcast a race. Rockingham, just, I don't know why it can't be on the schedule in today's NASCAR. I hope they add it back, but those are 2 absolutely phenomenal races.
Yeah, absolutely. This track has always been known for being a driver's type racetrack. The driver can make up a huge difference for what that car is lacking. The track is very abrasive. The tires wear. It means drivers are going to be slowing down, but they can also move around and try to manipulate what that car is doing. And it is typically in real life produce some extremely close finishes, especially the very last Cup race that was held here. So yeah, it's a shame that we don't have more tracks like this still on the real life schedule, but definitely so glad that iRacing allows us to be able to come out here and experience what it's like to run on a track like this. And as we go into next week, we're actually going to the Legacy Atlanta, the old Atlanta, and that's the best Atlanta. That's the one that's very similar to this. You can move around, it wears the tires out, drivers have options. So in the Gen 4 car next week, the season finale, really look for a very, very impressive showing to close out the PGRL season.
Yeah, and I was looking back at some of the stats from the last race at Atlanta that we had, which was also at the old version of Atlanta. That was the second week of the season, and Michael Krobach finished 16th in race 1, 5th in race 2, but Mike Rasmus actually wasn't there at all. So a little bit of course knowledge, I guess, on Michael Krobach's end, but of course Rasmus will be strong as he always is, and so always look forward to that. You talk about close finishes, JR. You see close finishes quite often at Atlanta Motor Speedway as well. 2 totally different tracks, 2 totally different vehicles, but we could end up with a similar kind of result. And then lastly, glad I could grace Michael Krobach with my criticism. But yeah, he has done better this year for sure, but that doesn't mean my criticism is going to stop. Anytime he throws one, I'll be the first to talk about it.
Oh, and Krobach out. You love to see it. You love to be on the Krobach bandwagon when he finishes well. Of course, all bandwagoners would agree. Speaking of in agreeance, we're all going to be back here live next week at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time, Tuesday, May 21st. That's Pretty Good Racing League season finale in Atlanta Motor Speedway. Again, it's the Legacy Atlanta. That's the good one. You want to get that Primo Atlanta, come watch the broadcast next Tuesday. And this Friday, if you catch yourself without much to do on a Friday night, Bootleg Racing League's Outlaw SK Modified Series takes on New Smyrna Speedway. As always, that broadcast goes live Friday, May 17th at 8:55 p.m. Eastern Time. This has been a pretty good production of the Virtual Grip Network. On behalf of myself, Austin Belke, my booth mates J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe, as well as our director Ryan Sedeker, thank you so much for watching and have a good night.